Hello, Peter. Councillor Bowman checking in.
Thank you, Councillor. You're coming through loud and clear.
Good evening, Councillor Santos checking in.
Thank you, Councillor. You're coming through loud and clear.
Sound check.
Thank you, Councillor Vasante. You're coming through loud and clear. Good evening, Mr. Chair. I do see 9 members of committee present. We'll confirm during roll call, but it is 7 o'clock. You can proceed with tonight's meeting.
Thank you very much, City Clerk, and good evening. Welcome to our virtual meeting of Brampton's Planning and Development Committee. We will begin the meeting with the City Clerk calling the roll for attendance at today's meeting.
Members of committee, I will call your name. Please indicate your presence. Councillor Santos.
Present.
Councillor Vasante.
Present.
Councillor Willens.
Present.
Councillor Paleshi.
Present.
Councillor Bowman.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
Good evening, I'm here.
Councillor Fortini.
Present.
Councillor Singh.
Present.
Councillor Dillon. I do not see on the call. And Mayor Brown doesn't appear to be present, and Chair Medeiros is present. There are 9 members present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Our next item is approval of the agenda. Does any member wish to add a business item for tonight's agenda?
Mr. Chair, if there are no
Yes.
If there are no items in the chat from proposed new business items, I just wish to point out that we received late request for a delegation from Jignish Mystery, and this is in regard to item 6.3 and staff report 7.3 on tonight's agenda. As well, there is correspondence, added correspondence 11.6 from Shannon Ray in regard to this matter. We also have a registered delegation from Sylvia Roberts regarding statutory public notice item 5.1, which we'll get to in a moment.
Okay, thank you. As I see, there are no further additions, and thank you. So note the changes by the clerk. I do have a motion moved by Councillor Fortini to approve the agenda. Does that the agenda for the Planning Development Committee meeting of January 17th be approved? Is there anyone opposed? I see none, so the motion carries. Next item is, do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? I see none. The clerk will so note for meeting minutes. Our next is consent motion. So I will read out items for consent. And again, just as a reminder, if councillors would like to hold any of these items from going in consent, just please turn on your speaker and let us know. Our first item is item 7.1, a staff report regarding application to amend the zoning bylaw, Glenn Schnarr and Associates, to develop lands for retail, office, and service commercial. Heritage Road, Lot 4, Concession 5, Ward 6. In consent. Item 8.1 minutes, Cycling Advisory Committee, December 14th. In consent. Correspondence from Jordan Lavecchia, Deputy Clerk, Town of Caledon, regarding the proposed settlement area boundary expansion concept for regional plan and region appeal 2051 official plan comments. In consent. Item 11.2, correspondence regarding GTA West Highway resolution. I believe we have correspondence from Credit Valley Conservation. And 2, City Clerk, City of Vaughan, GTA West update presentation, Federal Impact Assessment Act. In consent. So I do have a motion moved by Councillor Pelletier to approve the consent motion. That the following items were considered to be routine and non-controversial by committee and were considered at one time. So City Clerk, is there basically everything is in consent, so there's nothing else to add?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. Everything else is either a presentation, statutory public notice item, or a registered delegate.
Thank you for the confirmation. As per trial process agreed by council, the consent motion will be subject to a recorded vote, and I'll hand it over to the City Clerk to administer it.
All in favor of the consent motion for approval of the routine items, please indicate. Councillor Santos. Councillor Santos?
Yes, did you get it?
Thank
Yes.
you. Yes, thank you. Councillor Vasante?
Yes.
Councillor Willens?
In favor?
Councillor Pelletier?
In favor.
Councillor Bowman?
Yes.
Councillor Williams?
Yes.
Councillor Fortini?
Yes.
Councillor Singh?
Yes.
And Councillor Dillon is absent. The mayor is absent. Chair Medeiros?
Yes.
That carries unanimously, 9-0.
Thank you very much. Our next section is our statutory public meeting items. This is a public meeting of the Planning and Development Committee held in accordance with requirements of the Planning Act of Ontario. The proposals to be heard at this public meeting are the result of applications made under the Planning Act. There are not proposals of the City of Brampton unless they are specifically identified as city-initiated proposals. Tonight, we do not have any city-initiated proposals for a statutory public meeting. The intent of this public meeting is to receive submissions from the public regarding these proposals. Given we may have persons watching this meeting through the city's live stream, we will have staff present each proposal subject to a statutory public meeting unless committees decides otherwise. After receiving any pre-registered delegation, members of the committee may ask questions for clarification, but will not engage in debate on the proposal at this time. Committee consideration of the proposal will occur at a future meeting when planning staff bring forward the final recommendation report on each proposal. The city also has posted to its website, brampton.ca, supporting information documentation for these development applications for public review and reference. We will now proceed to consider 5 items on this evening's statutory public meeting agenda. After considering of these public meeting items, committee will deal with the balance of the agenda items on tonight's agenda. Our first report is item 5.1, proposal to amend our first public meeting, proposal to amend the official plan and the zoning bylaw and draft plan of subdivision, Candefcon, Gore Road, and I will now hand it over to our staff, Mark Michniak, in our development planning, building, and economic development division department, and hand it over to Mark. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Chair, committee members, staff, and members of the public. My name is Mark Michniak, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide information to the public, seek feedback on the application filed by Candefcon Limited on behalf of Senwood Developments Incorporated. Next slide. The subject property is located within Ward 10 in the eastern part of Brampton. It is located on the north side of Castlemore Road between the Gore Road and Clarkway Drive. This application is the first of 3 that we will be presenting here tonight within the Area 47-1 block plan. Next slide. The applicant is proposing to create a residential subdivision development. In total, the applicants are proposing to create 3,263 residential dwelling units. This is comprised of 177 single detached dwellings, 568 townhouse dwellings, and 2,518 apartment units. In addition, the proposed subdivision will contain 1 district retail block, 2 school blocks, 5 park blocks, 3 stormwater management blocks, along with natural heritage blocks, buffer blocks, open space blocks, ISTA blocks, and road winding blocks. Access to the subdivision will be from the adjacent arterial roads, the Gore Road, Castlemore Road, and Clarkway Drive. Slide, please. The applicants are also proposing to add a residential component to the district retail block, Block 41, which is located at the corner of Castlemore Road and Clarkway Drive. This will create a mixed-use development. Block 41 will contain 1,285 dwelling units within 7 buildings ranging in height from 6 to 12 stories. The commercial component will also consist of 12 buildings. Next slide, please. This map shows properties within 240 meters of the proposed development. Owners of these properties would have received notice by direct mail with respect to the proposal. Notice was also provided in the Brampton Guardian newspaper and on the City of Brampton website. Next slide. This slide shows the surrounding land uses. To the north, you can see agricultural lands and a single detached dwelling. To the south, across Castlemore Road, there is an existing residential community. The property directly adjacent at 4787 Castlemore Road is a listed heritage resource. To the east, across Clarkway Drive, there are vacant lands in agricultural use and single detached dwellings. And to the west, across the Gore Road, is the Gore Meadows Community Center and vacant lands also in agricultural use. The former property located at 10159 the Gore Road contained a heritage resource known as the Carefoot Fitzpatrick's House, which burnt down to the foundations in 2012. The house was 1.5-story red brick veneer residence resting on poured concrete and stone rubble foundation. In November 2012, the applicants obtained a permit to demolish the remains. As part of this approval, the Heritage Board recommended commemoration of the heritage value of the property by constructing a cairn with the salvaged material and interpretive signage placed on a publicly accessible open space on the property. Staff will work with the applicants to determine an appropriate location for these commemorative features within this proposal. Next slide, please. Subject property is designated residential in open space in the official plan. An amendment to the official plan is not required. Next slide, please. Property is designated low/medium density residential, medium density residential, high density residential, district retail, institutional, parkette, neighborhood park, valleyland, stormwater management facility, special policy area 9, and special policy area 10 in the Highway 427 industrial secondary plan. An amendment to the secondary plan is required to permit the proposed density and uses on Block 41. Next slide, please. Property is designated low/medium density residential, medium density residential, high density residential, district retail, elementary/secondary school, park, vista block, valley lands, and stormwater management pond and wetland restoration area within the Highway 427 Industrial Block Plan 47-1. An amendment to the block plan is not required to permit the proposed uses. Next slide, please. Subject property is currently zoned agricultural section 1520, floodplain, residential townhouse, E-4.4, section 2231, residential rural estate 2, and residential hamlet 1, section 1519 in the zoning bylaw. An amendment to the zoning bylaw will be required in order to permit the proposed uses. Next slide, please. There are a few items that staff are monitoring on this file. We are reviewing the proposed integration of heritage resources within the development, and we are examining the proposed increase in density in the high-density blocks, as well as residential uses to the district retail site. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations to Council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Peel official plan, and the City of Brampton official plan. Slide, please. This slide shows where staff are in the review of the application. The application has been circulated to city departments as well as other agencies for technical comment. We are now at the public meeting stage. Committee members and staff are here to listen to any feedback. After tonight's meeting, comments received from city departments, agencies, members of the public, and matters raised through the public delegations will be reviewed and evaluated. Once analysis and evaluation is complete, staff will return to the Planning and Development Committee with a recommendation report. The recommendation report will address all matters raised by members of the public, external agencies, and city departments. Anyone that provided their contact info with respect to this application will be advised when the recommendation report will be considered by committee. Once City Council makes a decision on the application, there is an opportunity to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Next slide, please. Report associated with tonight's meeting is available online, and the presentation will be available online shortly. Again, my name is Mark Mishniak, and my contact information is posted on screen. Also on screen is contact information for the applicant, Maria Jones of CanDevCon Limited. Thank you, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, do we have any delegations?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we do. We have Sylvia Roberts, who's present, who has requested to delegate on this item. And we also have representatives from CanDevCon present, should committee have any questions for them. So we're just going to bring Sylvia into the meeting. And Sylvia, you have up to 5 minutes to address committee on this matter.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Hello, my name is Sylvia Roberts. I'm a member of the Transit Advisory Committee, and as part of that, I check development applications for transit accessibility. Note, I'm speaking purely on behalf of myself. The city of Brampton absorbs a huge number of young people. For the 2 years preceding COVID, we probably added as many young single people as the total number of one-bedroom units existed in the city in 2016. It's to say, we need a lot of apartment units in the 0 to 2-bedroom unit range, and this application brings a lot of them. I also see the applications taking advantage of the harmonized and lowered parking requirements for apartment residential. I also very much like that. A lot of younger people who live in these apartments are much more likely, or substantially likely to take transit just because owning cars is quite expensive, especially under Brampton's onerous car insurance rates. I've got questions for both the applicant and also staff. The question for the applicant is if for the mixed use block, if they find that the parking is underused, if they would be able to later infill office there to actually use up that parking. One of the issues the city has had is that greenfield sprawled offices, the land is too expensive for the parking, and for high-rise with structured parking, it's too expensive. However, if the mixed-use block finds it had excess parking, then that parking is effectively acquirable for dramatically cheaper than if it was actually had to be acquired and built as part of the development. Do you want me to go on to the questions for the city staff now? That was a question to the chair. Okay. My questioning concern for the city staff, it's not so much that the applicant made an issue with this application, the development. It is because the city has a lot of the newer parts of Brampton struggle with inadequate transit. I know people who live in some of the newer parts of Brampton built in the last 15 years, and I've heard of people having to walk 40 minutes because it's actually faster to walk 40 minutes to get home from the GO station than take Brampton Transit, which is quite a policy failure. And in the northeast portion of Brampton, that is especially self-evident. I looked at the Brampton Transit map, and the closest bus terminals I can see to this area are Trinity Commons at Beauvert and Dixie, and Bramalea City Center by Bramalea Road and Queen, both of which are a significant distance. In order to actually provide the transit that this area needs for this development, but also that residents actually deserve and should basically be entitled to as part of being residents of Brampton, to keep them on par with the rest of the city needs to actually build a new transit terminal in this area. The Gore Meadows block, you're currently doing the planning for that. The city's secondary plan for that, I don't believe explicitly mentioned planning a transit terminal. We're going to need a transit terminal to be able to supply transit to this area. Otherwise, it's like building a new development with an inadequately sized water main or a 2-lane road supplying a massive subdivision. It's just grossly inadequate for the population, and it's not the applicant's fault. I see that there's mention of the Section 37 here for community benefits. Normally, it doesn't really make sense for office, but given the increased, given the mid and high-rise development stuff in this application, it does actually make sense between that versus ground-oriented housing for the difference there. That money should be directed to transit. I've looked at the transit at the traffic studies for this project, and there is a bit of an issue. The city's current rules for traffic studies don't appear to care how many transit users a development with 3,000 units is going to generate, which the developer did their stuff. It's that the city actually dropped the ball on the requirements, and the city is going to need to actually spell this out for the developers, because Brampton is in a very weird situation with being very unwalkable, but very high transit usage. The city has to do a bunch of the stuff so we can work with the developers to get stuff built and actually provide good housing for people. So the development can probably go forward, but the city should really be looking at like a holding provision in the zoning bylaw for approving it until there's adequate transit service, because as is, there's grossly inadequate transit service for this area. And if the city's looking at Section 37 benefits, that money is probably best used towards building a new bus terminal, which would be basically across the street of the Gore Road, probably Gore Meadows, and then also buying buses to also service this area. Thank you. That's my delegation.
Thank you very much. So I do see a question now. We move on to members of committee, and we do have a question from Councillor Singh. Go ahead.
Thank you. My questions are for staff. First question is around sustainability metrics. Given so many units are coming, how do we expect to move on the sustainability metrics given the amount of units and that this is greenfield?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Alan Parsons here, Director of Development Services. Thank you for the question, Councillor Singh. So we do have both Stephen Ganesh, the manager, relating to this application here, as well as Mark Michniak, our planner assigned. Perhaps they can advise on the score that's received at this point in time with respect to the sustainability metrics. But what I can advise further, Councillor, is that staff, really, as we are working through each of the development applications and processing, we always do strive to work with the applicants to ask them to provide a sustainability score for their development applications that work beyond what the minimum requirements are here. There is a required minimum score of a bronze threshold that does have to be achieved with all development applications. We'll be working through the details associated with the sustainability scores to understand where it is that the application results in some higher scores for the component parts, and where it is that there may be some lower scores as well. So with that, we will continue to work with them through the processing of the application, as well as through later site plan applications for individual blocks within the area as well. But at this point in time, I'd like to pass it over to either Stephen Ganesh or Mark Michniak just to advise on the score that is achieved to date. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks very much, Alan. And through the chair, pleased to report that to date, this particular plan has come in with the highest score on our matrix, which is gold. And certainly through the ongoing analysis that Mark and team will be working through the review of this application, it'd be our intention to maintain that sustainability score of gold through to the recommendation report. Then, of course, after draft plan of subdivision approval, working with the various groups and agencies through detailed engineering and implementation.
Okay, thank you. That's good to hear. And secondly, design standards. Given so many units, I have had issue with some of the design standards in other developments. So how are we going to ensure that we push the envelope on design standards?
Yeah, through to you, Councillor Singh, through Chair Medeiros, I can advise that, again, through the processing of the application, Councillor, we'll be looking to ensure that, in particular, where it is that there's the commercial portions of the site, we have the district retail portion of the site at the southeasterly portion, where they have commercial buildings there, also with the live work units, as well as the higher rise residential units. Really, as always, we'll be looking to work with the applicants to ensure that there's aesthetically appealing architecture that's included in quality building materials as well, for to ensure that really the buildings don't degrade really through the fullness of time, to make sure that really quality built forms. We'll be working through with the applicant now through the plan of subdivision application to ensure that really some guiding principles on all these things are included within the design guidelines. But thereafter, the application, the component parts of it for commercial and high-rise development will be subject to site plan applications as well. And so there we'll be looking to, in a very specific way, work to understand the high level of detail of the building materials and architectural design. Really, as we're working through the application, we'll be sure to share some of the key findings that we see in that respect through to area councillors as well. Thanks.
Thank you. And my last question is, I see the two ravines going through this parcel as well. So I'm not worried about the walkability, connectivity, or the trails or whatnot north to south. But I have flagged this for staff in the past too, the east to west connectivity. So I just want to flag that for the applicant as well as for staff to make sure we have good east to west walkable trails or whatever it is as well. I'm not worried about north to south. There's a few ravines that go through north to south, so I expect there'll be trails there. But that east to west, I just don't want issues down the line. That's, I guess, more of a comment as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. As I see there are no further comments, or questions of clarification. I do have a motion moved by Councillor Singh, and the motion will be on the board.
Mr. Chair, we'll just bring it up momentarily.
Yep, not a problem.
We're just having a few technical issues with Charlotte's computer, so we have a backup computer.
That's okay. I can read it out in the meantime if that's easier. Oh, it's right there. Okay. Okay, we do have a motion moved by Councillor Singh. Is there any, and taken as read, is there anyone opposed? I see none, so the motion carries. We now go on to item 5.2, application to amend the zoning bylaw draft plans subdivision, Glen Charles Associates, and I will hand it over to Andrew Ramsamy, again from our Planning, Building, Economic Development Department. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, fellow staff, and members of the public. My name is Andrew Ramsamy, and I'm the planner assigned to the process and review the subject application. Just to make note, this is the second of 3 applications being presented for the Area 47 block plan tonight. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by 10365 Gore Developments Limited and Glen Schnarr and Associates Inc. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 10 at 10365 Kilgore Road in the east part of Brampton. The nearest major intersection is the Gore Road and Castlemore Road, being north of Castlemore on the east side of the Gore Road. Next slide. As you can see from this image here, the parcel is surrounded by a large amount of agricultural land. To the north, there's a single detached residential dwelling on a large agricultural parcel. To the west, opposite the Gore Road, consists of large agricultural zone lots and a single detached residential dwelling subject to the Toronto Gore Rural Estate Secondary Plan. To the south exists more single detached dwellings, agricultural zone lots, and the Gore Road tributary extends to the south towards the Gore Road. The Gore Meadows Community Center is also located further south on the west side of the Gore Road. And finally, to the east consists of large agricultural zone lots. Beyond the Gore Road tributary, the Clark Way tributary also runs north to south. Next slide, please. The property has an area of approximately 20.14 hectares with a total frontage of 305.9 meters along the Gore Road. The Gore tributary intersects the parcel running north-south. Currently, there's a single detached residential dwelling with 2 accessory structures existing on the parcel, and a large portion of the land remain vacant. Next slide. The applicant's development proposal for a draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment is to facilitate the development of 295 residential units. These units are comprised of 118 single detached dwellings, 23 street townhouse dwellings, 55 rear lane detached dwellings, 72 dual frontage townhouses, and a medium density block consisting of 27 townhouse units. A park block, valleyland block, stormwater management block, walkways, open space, and buffer blocks, as well as public roads and laneways are also associated with the development. Next slide. This slide shows the area of notification for property owners within a 240-meter limit of the subject property who were sent notice of the application by direct mail. Signs have been posted on the property, and notice has also been published in the Brampton Guardian newspaper and on the city website. Next slide. The official plan designates the property for residential and open space. The residential designation permits residential land uses, including a full range of dwelling types, ranging from single detached dwellings to high-rise apartments. The open space designation indicates major open space features. These features include public and private open space, valley lands, and watercourse, corridors, wetlands, and woodlands. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Just relating back to the official plan, an amendment to the official plan is not required. The secondary plan designation of the property is medium density residential, low medium density residential, valley land, and neighborhood park. The low medium density designation permits single detached dwellings, semi-detached, and street-related townhouse structure types. The medium density designation permits apartments, back-to-back townhouses, stacked townhouses, and a seniors residence. An amendment to the secondary plan is not required. Next slide. The block plan designates the property for medium density residential, low medium density residential, valley land, vista block, and park. The proposed draft plan is consistent with the block plan. An amendment to the block plan is not required. Next slide. The current zoning for the property is agricultural and agricultural special section 1520. This zone permits agricultural uses as well as non-agricultural uses such as a single detached dwelling and group homes. For a complete list of permitted uses, please refer to Appendix 8 of the information report. Next slide, please. The applicant proposes to amend the zoning bylaw from the current agricultural zones to site-specific residential zones, which reflect the proposed dwelling types. As shown on the graphic here, each block proposed is rezoned to reflect each dwelling type. For example, single detached dwellings are associated with the proposed R1F and R2A zones, while townhouse dwellings are associated with the proposed R3C and R3E zones. And then open space is associated with the OS symbol as well. Next slide. Prior to finalizing recommendations to Council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan, and the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the regional Peel official plan, and the City of Brampton official plan. Next slide, please. The next steps in this application are to work with the applicant to finalize and deem the application complete. There have been a few minor comments that must be addressed at the for the parent block plan studies to obtain approval prior to the application being deemed complete. Staff will continue to review the application, including reviewing comments from the public and technical comments. So the final recommendation report to Council in the future for a decision. Issues raised will be addressed in the recommendation report. Staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. The report associated with tonight's meeting will be available online. The presentation will be available online shortly. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself, my manager, or the applicant. The applicant is Mark Condella from Glenn Schnarr and Associates, Inc., representing the owner, 10365 Glory Development Limited. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, do we have any delegations?
Mr. Chair, there are no delegations and there's no correspondence, and representatives from Glenn Schnarr and Associates are present should there be any questions of the applicant.
Okay, thank you. I do see a member of committee on the board, Councillor Singh.
Yeah, we have the 3 applications for Area 47. This is the second one, so I just wanted to ask similar questions. Where is this on the sustainability metrics so far to staff?
Through the chair, Steve Ganish, Manager of Development Services. Councillor Singh, excellent question. This particular application so far has ranked with a bronze score, but certainly through the ongoing review that Andrew and team can work with the applicant to see opportunities to sort of elevate that score where possible, bringing it closer to either silver or gold, similar to the previous presentation delivered by Mark.
Yeah, and because this is a greenfield and we have a lot of density, and this is the last area to be really developed towards 9 to 10, that would be great. And already asked about the urban standards. Just hope we have ways to be pushing that, the design standards as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I do not see any questions. So I do have again a motion moved by Councillor Singh. And the motion is on the board. We'll take it as read. Is there anyone opposed? I see none. Motion carries. Our next item is item 5.3, staff report regarding application to amend the zoning bylaw draft plan subdivision Gore Creek Estates Incorporated, Glenn Schnarr. And I will hand it over to Andrew once more. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Again, my name is Andrew Ramsamy, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. This is now the third and final public meeting item for the Area 47 block plan. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Gore Creek Estates, Inc. and Glenn Schnarr and Associates, Inc. Next slide. The subject property is located in Ward 10 at 10263 the Gore Road in the east part of Brampton. The nearest major intersection is the Gore Road and Castlemore Road, being north of Castlemore Road on the east side of the Gore Road. Next slide. Surrounding land uses include 2 single detached residential dwellings to the north, fronting onto the Gore Road. The valley land associated with the Gore Road with the Gore tributary also continues north of the subject property. To the west, opposite the Gore Road, consists of agricultural zone lands subject to the Toronto Gore Rural Estate Secondary Plan. To the south, a single detached dwelling abuts the land. Agricultural zone lots surrounding the neighboring single detached dwellings. The Gore tributary extends to the south towards the Gore Road. The Gore Meadows Community Center is also located further south on the west side of the Gore Road. And finally, to the east consists of agricultural zone lots. Further east beyond the Gore tributary, the valley lands associated with the Clarkway tributary runs north-south. Next slide, please. The property has an area of approximately 20.15 hectares with a total frontage of 212 meters along the Gore Road. The Gore tributary intersects the parcel running north-south, and the lands are currently vacant. Next slide, please. The applicant's development proposal for a draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment is to facilitate the development of 605 residential dwelling units. These units are comprised of 91 single detached residential dwellings, 58 semi-detached residential dwellings, 33 townhouse units, and 423 apartment units. There are also 3 park blocks, a Valley Land block, an elementary school block, walkways, open space, buffer blocks, and public roads are also associated with the development. Next slide. This slide offers a high-level look at the concept plan for the high-density block. The image on the left illustrates a conceptual building layout for the apartments. The concept plan shows 4 separate apartment buildings, which will total approximately 423 apartment units. Access to the high-density block will be from Street A. Conceptual elevations and amenity features are shown on the right. Design and layout of the high-density block will require a more detailed review in the form of a future site plan application. Next slide, please. This slide shows the area of notification for the property owners within a 240-meter limit of the subject property who are sent notice of the application by direct mail. Signs have been posted on the property, and notice has been published in the Brampton Guardian newspaper and on the city's website. Next slide. The official plan designates this property as residential and open space. An amendment to the official plan is not required. Next slide. The secondary plan designates the property for high-density residential, low, medium-density residential, valley land, neighborhood, park, and stormwater management. The low, medium-density designation permits single detached, semi-detached, and street-related townhouse structure types. The high-density designation permits townhouses, duplexes, masonettes, and apartments. An amendment to the secondary plan is not required. Next slide, please. The block plan designates the property for medium-density residential, low, medium-density residential, valley land, elementary school, park, and cross-valley connection. The proposed draft plan is consistent with the block plan. An amendment to the block plan is not required. Next slide, please. The current zoning for the property is agricultural and agricultural 1520. This zone permits agricultural uses as well as non-agricultural uses such as a single detached dwelling and group homes. For a complete list of permitted uses, please refer to Appendix 8 of the information report. Next slide, please. The applicant proposes to amend the zoning bylaw from the current agricultural zones to site-specific residential zones, institutional, and open space zones, which reflect the proposed draft plan of subdivision. As shown on the graphic, each block is proposed to be rezoned for each use. For example, single and semi-detached dwellings are associated with the R2A zone. Townhouse dwellings are associated with the proposed R3E zones. Residential apartments are associated with the proposed R4A zone. Institutional is associated with the I1 zone, and open space is associated with the OS zone. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations to Council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region Appeal Official Plan, and the City of Brampton Official Plan. Next slide. The next steps in this application are, again, to work with the applicant to deem or have the application deemed complete. Similar to the last application presented, a few minor comments must be addressed as part of the block plan studies to obtain approval prior to the application being deemed complete. Staff will continue to review the application, including reviewing comments from the public and technical comments, and then proceed to advance a final recommendation report to council for decision. Issue raised will be addressed in the recommendation report. Staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide. The report associated with tonight's meeting is available online. The presentation will be available online shortly. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself, my manager, or the applicant. The applicant is Mark Candello from Glenschnar and Associates, Inc., representing the owner of Gore Creek Estates, Inc. That concludes my presentation, and thank you.
Thank you very much. And do we have any delegations, City Clerk?
Mr. Chair, there are no delegations, no correspondence, and representatives from Glenschnar and Associates are present should there be any questions.
Okay, thank you. And I do see members of the committee. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, just following up on the same questions line of thinking. Where does this one fall in the sustainability metrics?
Through the chair, Councillor Singh, Steve Candace, Chair, this application again falls within the score of bronze. But if you recall from Andrew's presentation, he did show that proposed high density block, which presents an opportunity for staff to work with the applicant to see where we could increase that score along the lines of the earlier presentation presented tonight.
Okay, and hopefully we can get that score up with some nice design standards. But just wanted to ask that question, and thank you for all the work staff is doing for Area 47. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do have a motion moved by Councillor Singh, and I believe the motion's on the board. Is there anyone opposed? I see none, so the motion carries. We go now on to our next item, item 5.4, application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw and draft plan of subdivision Glenschnar and Associates, Brampton Limited, Argo, TFP Brampton. And I will now hand it over to Carmen Caruso. Welcome, Carmen.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and everyone attending this virtual public meeting this evening. My name is Carmen Caruso, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review this application to amend the official plan, the zoning bylaw, and draft plan of subdivision. The application was submitted by Glenschnar and Associates on behalf of Argo TFP Brampton Limited and Argo TFP Brampton 2 Limited. Through this presentation, I will be providing some of the technical background and a brief overview of the policy context associated with this proposal. I'll also be outlining some of the preliminary issues that will need to be addressed as part of this application. Please note, as outlined in the public meeting notice, the Planning and Development Committee will not make a decision on this application this evening. The purpose of this meeting is to provide residents and the public with information with respect to this proposal and seek feedback. Next slide, please. The site is located generally on the northwest corner of Mississauga Road and Beauvert Drive West, between the CN Railway tracks and Beauvert Drive West. And the property is municipally known as 10124 and 10244 Mississauga Road. Next slide, please. With respect to land uses in the area, the subject site is currently vacant and is mainly surrounded by vacant land. To the north of the subject site is the CN rail track. On the east is Mississauga Road, and beyond is natural heritage system area and some areas approved for future residential uses. To the south of the property at the northwest corner of Beauvert Drive West and Mississauga Road is a mix of residential, retail, and self-storage uses. South of Beauvert Drive West is vacant land, a service station, and a driving range. Also in the vicinity is a secondary school, a place of worship, and low-density residential uses. Next slide, please. As noted, an application has been submitted to amend the official plan and the zoning bylaw and for the approval of a draft plan of subdivision. The applicant is proposing to develop the lands with approximately 1,550 dwelling units, including 169 single detached dwellings made up of 55 12.5 meter lots, 104 11.6 meter lots, and 10 10.4 meter lots. In addition, 691 freehold townhouse dwellings are being proposed, made up of 185 street townhouses, 164 dual frontage townhouses, 226 back-to-back townhouses, and 116 rear lane townhouses. The remaining 690 residential units will be located on the medium density and high density blocks within the development. Also included in the proposal are 2 potential sites for the Peel Regional Police Divisional Headquarters, a site for an elementary school block, and a number of open space and natural heritage blocks. The applicant has asked that this proposal proceed through a minister's zoning order. Minister's zoning orders are used by the provincial government to approve priority or urgent initiatives as quickly as possible. On November 24th, 2021, Council approved a request by the applicant to ask that the province consider the proposal through a minister's zoning order. The request was primarily based on the need to establish and operate a new Peel Regional Police Divisional Headquarters in a timely manner. If the province proceeds with a zoning order for this site, development will be approved subject to the requirements and restrictions set out in the order. Next slide, please. The site is designated Northwest Brampton Development Area, open space, and is in a special policy land use areas 12, 17, and 18 in the city's official plan. The official plan policies for the Northwest official plan policies for the Northwest Brampton Urban Development Area and special policy areas 17 and 18 relate to the exploration of this site for significant commercial, office, and residential development. Special policy area 12 allows a small portion of the site to be used for a place of worship. Policies in the open space designation are aimed at conserving and protecting natural heritage features, their functions, and their linkages. Amendment to the official plan is required to permit the land uses proposed as part of the development. A draft official plan amendment has been submitted by the applicant that updates policies and schedules to reflect their proposal. Next slide, please. The site is designated Osmington Special Policy Area, Mixed Use Center, and Special Policy Area 2 in the Mount Pleasant Secondary Plan. The policies in these designations refer back to the official plan policies, so the policies discussed in the previous slide also apply to the policies of secondary plan. An amendment to the secondary plan is required, and the applicant has submitted a draft secondary plan amendment that further updates policies and schedules in the secondary plan. Next slide, please. The site has an agricultural and an institutional zoning as indicated on this slide. The uses permitted on the land zoned agricultural include a range of agricultural uses, a single detached dwelling, and limited institutional uses. The land zoned institutional on the southeast corner of this site allows a place of worship only. A site-specific zoning bylaw amendment is required to permit this development. The zoning bylaw submitted by the applicant proposes to rezone the lands to permit a range of single detached dwellings and townhouse units, a wide range of commercial, institutional, and residential uses, and a number of open space and natural heritage areas. The applicant has also proposed a number of development standards in their draft bylaw. The extent of the uses proposed and the development standards will be evaluated as part of this application. Next slide, please. So some of the preliminary issues that have been noted. So there are a number of non-participating landowners to the north, to the west, and to the southeast of the site. Also, the city is currently undertaking work for the secondary plan for Heritage Heights on the adjacent lands. The proposal should, to the greatest degree possible, be consistent with the ultimate vision for the area, and developed in a manner that ensures that it will integrate well with future proposals on surrounding land uses. The applicant has also provided studies that evaluate the natural heritage areas. These studies will be reviewed to confirm the boundaries of environmentally significant features to ensure these areas and features are protected. The location and ultimate route of the GTA West transportation corridor and how it may impact this development will need to be understood. Staff, agencies, and the applicant will need to review the appropriateness of the location and size of land uses, including the high-density blocks on Bovair Drive West, the proposed elementary school block and park blocks in the center of the development, and the two options for the Peel Regional Police Headquarters. The suitability of the proposed road network, including proposed crossings over the Trans-Canada Pipeline and natural heritage system blocks, and the ability to implement further crossings to connect with potential future road networks will need to be evaluated. And an understanding of any potential development constraints of the medium density blocks on the northeast portion of the property due to its proximity to the railway, and further improvements to Mississauga Road is required. Staff will further investigate these issues as well as others that are raised through the review of this application. Next slide, please. The application will be evaluated against provincial and municipal policies, including those found in the Planning Act, the provincial policy statement, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Peel official plan, the City of Brampton official plan, and the Mount Pleasant secondary plan. Next slide, please. This slide indicates the steps that have occurred with respect to the review of this application and the future steps in the evaluation process. Staff is currently finalizing the notice of complete application for publication in the Brampton Guardian and to be sent to the applicant. The application has been circulated to city departments and external agencies for comments, and meetings are being held with staff, agencies, and the applicant to ensure any issues related to this application are understood. The notice of tonight's statutory public meeting under the Planning Act was sent out on December 29th, 2021, and today we are at the public meeting stage of this application. For the next steps, staff will continue to assess the application by analyzing and evaluating comments and issues that are raised at tonight's meeting by residents and landowners that make representation before the committee, as well as analyzing and evaluating comments that were received from submitted correspondence from residents, city departments, and external agencies. With respect to the remaining steps, there are two possible paths. First, if the minister's zoning order that establishes land use requirements and restrictions on the site is issued, staff will work towards preparing conditions of draft plan approval for the subdivision and process the subdivision application. Note that if the zoning order does proceed, there is no mechanism to appeal the zoning on the site. The second path is that if a minister's zoning order is not issued for this site, once a comprehensive review has been completed, staff will prepare a recommendation report for consideration by council. Any issues raised through the review of the application, including any issues raised this evening, will be addressed in a future recommendation report. Anyone who has provided their contact information at tonight's meeting or through correspondence relating to this file will be notified before the recommendation report is considered by council. If a minister's zoning order is not issued, any decision that council makes in support or in opposition to the proposal can be appealed to the Ontario to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Next slide, please. So the information report and correspondence associated with tonight's meeting is available online at www.brampton.ca on the City Hall Meetings and Agendas page. This presentation will also be available online shortly. Also note that the applicant has created a website for this proposal at mountpleasantheights.ca, so that's MT Pleasant Heights, all one word, .ca, as indicated on this slide. The website is intended to provide additional information with respect to this proposal, which includes a brief overview and frequently asked questions. There's also the ability for users of the website to provide their comments with respect to the proposal to help the applicant understand and address any issues raised. Please note that the website by the applicant is managed by the applicant and not by the City of Brampton. Please continue to forward any concerns with respect to this proposal as noted in the notice for this public meeting. Again, my name is Carmen Crusoe. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me or the applicant. The contact information as well as a website is shown on the slide. Thank you for listening, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, do we have delegations?
Mr. Chair, there are no delegations. We do have correspondence identified under 11.5 on tonight's agenda, and we have representatives from the applicant present should there be any questions.
Okay, thank you. I do not see any questions from members of the committee. So I do have a motion moved by Councillor Woolens. And we see the motion on the board, so we'll take it as read. Is there anyone opposed? I see none, so the motion carries. We now move on to our last item of statutory public meeting, application for a temporary use zoning bylaw amendment, Darcy Holdings Incorporated, Blackthorn Development. And I will hand this over to Mark Mishniak again from our Planning, Building, and Economic Development Department. Welcome, Mark, again.
Thank you and good evening, Chair, committee members, staff, and members of the public. My name is Mark Mishniak. I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. And the purpose of tonight's public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Blackthorn Developments Corp. on behalf of Darcy Holdings Incorporated. Next slide, please. The subject property is located within Ward 10 in the eastern part of Brampton, located on the northeast corner of Countryside Drive and Coleraine Drive. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to develop an outdoor storage facility. The development will include space for outdoor storage of materials, salt dome, 99 parking spaces for oversized vehicles, and 74 parking spaces for regular vehicles. Access to the site will be from Countryside Drive. Slide, please. Surrounding land uses include, to the north, vacant lands, and agricultural use with a single detached dwelling. To the south, across Countryside Drive, vacant lands and agricultural use. To the east, 2 single detached dwellings, followed by vacant lands and agricultural use. And to the west, across Coleraine Drive, there are 2 single detached dwellings and vacant lands and agricultural use. 5556 Countryside Drive is identified as a listed heritage resource on Brampton's Municipal Register of Cultural Heritage Resources. Next slide, please. Although the surrounding land uses are currently rural in character, it is important for us to highlight that the planning context for this application, as it will guide future development within the area. This slide shows the subject property and its location within the Highway 427 Industrial Secondary Plan. This secondary plan, which was approved by Council on September 10, 2014, designates the subject and surrounding properties for various employment uses. The types of permitted uses range from logistics, warehouses, business park, and industrial. Locations of these different uses are shown on the plan in different shades of purple. Majority of the lands, although the majority of the lands retain their agricultural zoning permission, as zoning amendments such as this one and the one immediately south of Countryside Drive are received, the area will take on more of an industrial character. Next slide, please. Subject property is designated industrial and quarter production area and special study area in the official plan. So the official plan is not required. Next slide. Property is designated prestige industrial and heritage resource in the Highway 427 Industrial Secondary Plan. An amendment to the secondary plan is not required to permit the proposed uses. Next slide. Subject property is currently zoned agricultural in the zoning bylaw. A temporary zoning bylaw amendment would be required in order to permit the proposed uses. Next slide. There are a few items that staff are monitoring on this file. We are reviewing the proposed integration and preservation of heritage resources within the development. We are examining the interface with existing uses, including residential uses to the east. And we are examining the capacity of public roads to handle the proposed truck traffic. Slide, please. This map shows properties within 240 meters of the proposed development. Owners of these properties would have received notice by direct mail with respect to the proposal. Notice was also provided in the Brampton Guardian newspaper and on the City of Brampton website. Slide. Prior to finalizing recommendations to Council, This application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan for the Golden Horseshoe, the Regional Peel official plan, and the City of Brampton official plan. Slide, please. This slide shows where staff are in the review of the application. The application was deemed complete on January 12th, 2022, and it has been circulated to city departments as well as other agencies for technical comment. We are now at the public meeting stage. Committee members and staff are here to listen to any feedback. After tonight's public meeting, comments received from city departments, agencies, members of the public, and matters raised through the public delegations will be reviewed and evaluated. Once analysis and evaluation is complete, staff will return to the Planning Development Committee with the recommendation report. The recommendation report will address all matters raised by members of the public, external agencies, and other city departments. Anyone that provided their contact information with respect to this application will be advised when the recommendation report will be considered by committee. Once City Council makes a decision on the application, there is an opportunity to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Slide, please. The report associated with tonight's meeting is available online, and the presentation will be available online shortly. Again, my name is Mark Mishniak, and my contact information is posted on screen. Also on screen is contact information for the applicant, Maurizio Regato of Blackthorn Development Corp. Thank you, and this concludes my presentation.
Mr. Chair, just to advise that we do not have any delegation requests for this item. We do have correspondence listed under item 11.3, and Maurizio Regato, on behalf of the applicant, is present should there be any questions from members of committee.
Okay, are there any questions from members of the committee? I see no questions, so I do have a motion moved by Councillor Singh. Is there anyone opposed? I see none. The motion carries. We now move on to our public delegations. Item 6.1. Do we have any delegations, City Clerk?
Mr. Chair, we do not.
Okay. So at this time, we can deal with the amendment to sign bylaw 399/2002 in Ward 1. Are there any questions regarding the report? I see none, so I do have a motion moved by Councillor Vicente to approve the staff report. Are there anyone opposed? I see none, so report has been received, motion carries. We go now to our next item is the minutes have been received already. So we go, that's in consent. And City Clerk, our next item would be...
Through you, Mr. Chair, is item 6.2. These are the minutes from the Brampton Heritage Board. Committee may recall at its last meeting in December, the November 16th minutes were adopted, save and except for recommendation HB 058-2021. It was deferred to tonight's meeting for further consideration, and subsequently there is a delegation request from Enzo Bertucci, my apologies, Director of Land Development, Branthaven Credit View, Inc. And after the delegation, committee may wish to consider that recommendation HB 058-2021, which has been published with the agenda.
Okay, thank you. And we will now move on to the delegation. I'll hand it over to you, to City Clerk, to administer the delegation.
So Enzo, you are in the meeting. You have up to 5 minutes to address the committee. You can proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Hope you can hear me. Unfortunately, I don't. Hold on. Let's see if I can start the camera. Hopefully you can see me as well.
Yeah. We can hear you and see you. Please proceed.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, committee chair, committee members, city staff, and members of the public. My name is Enzo Bertucci, and I'm the Director of Land Development at Branthaven. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I'm here to speak on the property which is located at 8940 Credit View Road. The subject property is approximately 3.49 hectares with a frontage of 49.79 meters along Credit View Road. We have recently submitted applications for a draft plan of subdivision, an official plan, and zoning bylaw amendment for these lands. Our application proposes the development of 62 single-family detached dwellings consisting of 38, 42, and 53-foot product. Specifically, I would like to speak to you about the residential dwelling that is situated on the property and is referenced as the Edwin Trimble House. As part of our development proposal for these lands, we were required to prepare a heritage impact assessment by a qualified consultant for this dwelling. The report was submitted in June of 2021. There were some back and forth exchanges of information between our consultant and the Heritage Society in subsequent months. The report went forward to the Brampton Heritage Board on November 16, 2021. However, neither ourselves or our consultant were made aware of when the report was being presented to the board, and were not able to attend that meeting in order to voice our opinion on the matter. I'm here this evening to express our opposition to the recommendations that came out of the November 16th meeting by the Heritage Board. Although we are in favor of retaining heritage structures within any of our sites and repurpose them when it is deemed to be appropriate, we do not feel that this is the case in this instance. Our conversations with the previous landowner, whose family constructed the dwellings on this property, we were advised that the building was not even the original farmhouse for the family. The original building was taken down years ago. There are many other more significant buildings in the surrounding area that have since been removed to allow for new development to proceed. It is our opinion that this building is being asked to be retained due to the fact that it's the last of original buildings in the area and not so much for its true heritage value. The dwelling as it sits currently is quite set back from Credit View Road and is not in line with any of the other homes that have been built either adjacent to it or across the road. It does not fit in with the current fabric of the type of dwellings that are in the area and does nothing to inform one of the historical nature of what this community once was. We are requesting that this committee overturn the recommendations of the Heritage Board and allow us to remove this dwelling as part of our current development process. Our land is the last piece of undeveloped land in this area, and this would allow for the completion of this community with homes that are similar in form of what is currently there. As part of the removal, we would be happy to undertake a demolition of the home that is both sensitive and respectful to the history of these lands, and use some of the material salvage to build an acknowledgement piece that can inform the public of what was on these lands. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair Medeiros. There seems to be a difference of opinion here on the Trimble House. I have not been in the Trimble House as yet, but I understand that if you are in the Trimble House now, that there are some very big issues with it, including basement foundation flooding, which has led to the house not being used in over 2 years. I'm also not certain, and I don't know if the Heritage Board has shown us yet that indeed this is the original Trimble House. As the delegate has stated, I was also told by the landowner that his family had erected that house. So I'm having trouble with this one only because I'm not certain that that we have all the information we need to make a decision here. If this is the original house, I'm fine. I am fine with having it preserved and moved. But if this is not the original house, I'm wondering just what is the purpose of saving this house as compared to any of the other houses, and if there's any documentation or proof that this is or is not the original house. So I would like to put off this recommendation. I would like to defer it again until such time as we can either show evidence or proof that this is a heritage house on the property or it is not a heritage house, and whether that is deemed heritage because it's the original Trimble House or whether it's being deemed heritage because it's the last of this particular type of house in the area. So at this point, I do not have all the information that I need to say one way or the other, yes or no. And again, if it is heritage and if it is the Trimble House, by all means, we should be preserving it and utilizing it somewhere in the development. But if it's not, then perhaps other arrangements can be made for that particular home in the form of a monument, as we've discussed in the very first application today for that house that was burnt down. So I'd like to defer this until we can find out yes or no for sure. Is this the original Trimble house? And have the Heritage Board weigh in on the fact that if it is or if it isn't. So I don't know when the next Heritage Board meeting is, when perhaps the delegate can also appear at that board and talk to the Heritage Committee.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bowman. I guess,
Sorry, Mr. Chair, it's Peter. Sorry, just to advise that there is a Brampton Heritage Board meeting scheduled for tomorrow evening. That may be too soon, I don't know. And then the next one after that would be in February 15th.
Okay, the February 15th, deferring it to that meeting would be fine with me. That gives both sides plenty of time to determine what is and isn't, if that's the case, and then we can move on from there. I'd feel much more comfortable that way. Thank you.
okay, thank you, Councillor Bowman, and if I can move that the chair be heard. I guess my comment is I do support, I guess, the deferral, Councillor Bowman. I guess to the delegation, in the event, because my understanding that it is not the original home as well, and again, I'm not, this is what what was made to understand. In the event it isn't the original home, is there any way that would you be willing to work with the city to either one way or another note its heritage significance, or be it a plaque or anything of those sorts? Is that something you've done in the past?
Yes, we have it. Absolutely, we would be open to that. We've done all kinds of different education pieces, whether, like you said, it would be a plaque, even something that shows a map of the area as it once was, again, with a little write-up that helps to inform what was there before. So, yeah, we would be happy to work with the city staff or the board itself as to what type of monument would be acceptable, for sure.
Okay, no, great. Then that's good to hear. So I'm hoping that based on what we get back in terms of the confirmation of its if it's original or not, then I would be good as one of the area councillors to have some form of plaque or significant or something prominent that really speaks to its heritage features. I do see someone on the board, Councillor Willens. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor Bowman, for deferring this to the next Heritage Board meeting. I'm kind of torn on this one as well, because I do have a love for heritage, being born and raised in Brampton, and seeing a lot of homes restored, and some have been taken down. But yeah, I was under the impression, I'm a little confused too, because I was under the impression that that house had been lived up until the point of purchase by the applicant, and I guess that's not the case. I understand there is water in the basement. And the pictures that I have seen, and no fault of staff, because they're probably just the current pictures that they've had. They're probably not current, they're probably older pictures. But it did show it looked like somebody was living in the house, but I don't think that's the case. So, yeah, I'm happy for a deferral going back so we can get this clarified once and for all. Thanks.
Okay, so I do have a deferral moved by Councillor Bowman. Is there anyone opposed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, it is a referral now to the February 15th Heritage Board?
Yes, that's correct. So referral moved by Councillor Bowman to the Heritage Board meeting of February 15th. Is there anyone opposed? I see none, so the motion carries. Thank you very much. Our next item now is item 6.3. Is that correct, City Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. 6.3 is an application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw. Habitat for Humanity, Greater Toronto Area, Glen Schnarr and Associates are the applicant at 1524 Countryside Drive in Ward 9. We have 3 delegates that are registered. The first is Ravantith Thakalpati, and that'll be followed by Bruce McCall Richmond, and then there was the late delegate that registered of Jigesh Mistry, who we don't see has joined the meeting at the moment, but Ravantith is present, And Raventh, you can address committee on this item.
Hi, everyone.
Good
I would
evening.
like
Please
to turn on
proceed.
my video. Yes. Hi, everyone. So I would like to talk about the construction on site 1254 Countryside Drive. And good evening, everyone, and members of the Brampton City Council. Thanks for really giving me this opportunity to talk at this virtual public meeting. After reviewing the City of Brampton's application, after reviewing the agenda today, I would like to say that this application to amend the official plan or zoning in bylaw, I don't think this application will satisfy the application of section B, paragraph 3, which is it is responsibility of the applicant to research and evaluate the site and proposal to ensure the development will conform the interests of health, safety, convenience, welfare of the present and future residents. We in this community, we raised a petition to see if everyone is okay with the construction, and about 182 families within the residents were not okay with this application. So this directly contradicts the section B, paragraph 3 of the application. So that I wanted to point that out. And also the report is skewed towards the recommendations with very limited considerations to our concerns. The area was not zoned for apartment buildings as alluded in the recommendation. Impact on social amenities were not addressed. Impact on house values were also not addressed in the detailed recommendation report. So also in the for the parkland, it was said that it was not about the parkland but the schools. It was said that the document in the document that the schools were able to allow more students with more capacities, but when we talked to the residents in the community, they said that there were not too much accommodation for the kids at this point. And I wanted to raise this point for the schools, and I don't know if the consideration was done with the COVID impact too, because with COVID, I don't see many students not going to school. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to see if that consideration was made. And for the landscaping part, bins are placed towards the fence of the townhouses attached. I'm living in one of those townhouses that are very directly to the construction site, and the bins. It was said that in the application that it was 1 meter. It will be moved 1 meter from the fence, and I don't think this will resolve the issue of attracting the wildlife towards the bins, and which will cause a lot of problem. And for the sound part, the acoustic fence on countryside. It was said that the acoustic fence will be built on the countryside drive, but I don't think that and it was not clear that the fence will be built along the fence towards the townhomes that are already built there, and it was not clear. So and also I don't think the acoustic fence will carry a lot of noise in there, and the air pollution. I just want to stress this part out because I know my neighbor had a very had a 3 months old kid, and we have a very younger kids too. So with the sound pollution and also air pollution that's going to cause, it's gonna create a lot of chaos in the community, and we wanted you to consider that in your reports. I don't know at this point if the approval was already made, but I just wanted to lay this one out. And we have about 182 families that are opposing this construction. Please do consider that and let us know your approval on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next delegate is Bruce McCall Richmond from Glenschnar and Associates. Bruce, you have up to 5 minutes. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. And good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council, staff, and the public. My name is Bruce McCall Richmond, and I'm a planner with Glenschnar and Associates. I requested to delegate tonight primarily to just secure my availability should there be any questions, but also just to offer some clarity regarding this proposal. and I will be quick. Proposed are 15 townhouses adjacent to and in an area containing existing townhouses. The planning rationale is sound, and the development of this vacant parcel completes the plan for function of the area, while also contributing to the city's affordable housing objectives and policies. The amendments they're required to minorly adjust the density provisions for the stacked townhouse form proposed. All of these homes, all 15 townhouses, will be available for Habitat's affordable home ownership program, which creates opportunities for entry into the housing market and is an affordable housing form. I just wanted to quickly touch on some of the correspondence received and with regard to the resident group. We've made, and in conjunction with Habitat, we've been diligent in our efforts to contact and offer our availability to discuss the planning related comments received. So in conjunction with Habitat, we held one statutory open house. We've attended and participated in the public meeting. And as I've said, we've corresponded directly with the resident group and the residents to provide suggested meeting times and generally just to provide our availability over the past couple of months. None of this outreach was accepted, but I do wish to reiterate, we do want to continue working with the residents on planning related matters. And I will say again, I am available, as are the staff at Habitat. So ultimately, I do agree with staff's recommendation and the findings and detailed analysis in their report. I do feel that the planning matters have been satisfactorily addressed, and I'd be happy to elaborate on any of the specifics of this proposal, and I do look forward to your support. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we did have a late delegation request from Jignesh Mistry. We don't see Jignesh on the call, but we do have somebody identified as Piyush. I just want to verify. We've unmuted Piyush's mic. Is this Jignesh? The person identified as Piyush.
Actually, no. Good evening, everyone. No, it's not Jignesh.
Okay, thank you. We'll put that person back on mute, please. Thank you. So the third registered delegate, Jignesh Mistry, is not present. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes all the delegations. We also have correspondence 11.6, which includes added correspondence from Shannon Ray that was advised at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, City Clerk. I do see member committee, Councillor Singh. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Medeiros, and thank you to the applicant and the planner and Ravant for delegating. I've had a lot of emails about this and a lot of correspondence. I've talked to a lot of people, so it's overwhelmingly many residents are opposed to this development, but I do understand the need for affordable housing and Habitat for Humanity. So this is not a knock on their work, nor do I think the residents have an issue with Habitat for Humanity, but just given the density, the location, and sort of the concerns of the residents, you know, I will be supporting my residents in this and opposing this, but you know, at the end of the day, we follow the will of council, so I'll just ask for a recorded vote as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I see no further questions. So I do have a motion to receive the delegations. Is there anyone? So I have a motion moved by Councillor Singh to receive the delegations. And was there correspondence as well?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it would be correspondence 11.6 to receive that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there anyone opposed? I see none, so the motion carries. Our next item of business.
Through you, Mr. Chair, then the next vote would be on staff report 7.3, and a recorded vote's been requested by Councillor Singh on the staff recommendation.
So I'll hand it over to you, City Clerk, to administer the recorded vote on the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of committee, a recorded vote's been requested on item 7.3. The staff recommendations is shown on the screen. All in favor, please indicate. Councillor Santos. Councillor Santos? I'll come back to you. Councillor Vasante.
Yes.
Councillor Willens.
Yes.
Councillor Paleshi.
Yes.
Councillor Bowman.
Yes.
Councillor Williams.
Yes.
Councillor Fortini.
Yes.
Councillor Singh.
Nope.
I do not see Councillor Dillon present. I'll go back to Councillor Santos. I do not see Councillor Santos present. Chairman.
Yes, sorry.
Oh,
Sorry about that, yes.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Councillor. That's a yes. Chair Medeiros.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, that carries 8-1.
Okay. So motion carries. We go now on to staff presentations and plan reports. I think the first one, 7.1, was in consent. 7.2 we've dealt with. 7.3 we've just dealt with. Cycling minutes in consent. So our Heritage Board referred matters under delegation and administrative. So we've dealt with that. Correspondence, we've dealt with that. And GTA resolution. So I think City Clerk, we are now at item
12, Council question.
Are there any questions for members of the committee tonight? I see none. And public question period, are there any questions for members of the public?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just looking right now and I do, I wouldn't say it's a question. It's somebody who's identifying Viral Chauhan. The feed is very slow and choppy, but I just want my question concern addressed because it is not in the report. So we'll take it as a question. I live at 38 Zelda, which will be directly sharing a fence with the new development. This is in regard to the report at 1524 Countryside. The initial proposal has a garbage bin refuse directly behind my fence. I would like to know if this concern was addressed. Please advise if this is being moved, and if not, I request an explanation as this directly impacts myself and 40 and 36 Zelda as well.
Mr. Chair, perhaps I can address the question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And so through you, I can advise Chair and Council, Planning Committee rather, that the items, the details as it relates to the siting of the buildings on the site, the location of garbage, refuse areas, the parking spaces, all the various physical details as shown in the concept, those matters were provided to us to identify to staff that the site is viable for the intended use and the stacked townhouse dwellings. So as it is, though, that we're going to be working with the applicant through a required site plan application process, we will be looking at those types of details in detail. We will be receiving a formal application from the applicant. Various things that are received through the site plan application might very well be different than what's identified in the concept to date. So staff, though, will be looking at all of that through a future site plan application, and we'll be looking at really perfecting different elements that really we think need addressing. And so, hearing the concerns about the garbage refuse areas, proximity of them to the existing residents just in behind, adjacent to the site, we'll be looking to try to deal with that in the best possible way, ensuring some greater distances if possible. If not, we'll be looking at different transition elements like walls, decorative feature, buffering, landscaping. We'll be looking at all of those types of things. So I can just generally advise that through that site plan process, we'll be looking at all these types of things and looking to improve upon what we see already through the concept plan.
Okay, thank you very much. So City Clerk, then our next item is adjournment, and our next meeting is January 31st at 7 p.m. I do have a motion moved by Councilor Fortini that the Planning Development Committee do now adjourn and meet again on January 31st at 7 p.m. Is there anyone opposed? I see none. The motion carries. Have everyone a safe night.